Good Tuesday morning. I'm Father Steve from St. Bridget's Hermitage, and this is Moments with the Master. Today is the 24th day of August 2020, and our readings today come from the book of 2 Thessalonians, chapter 2, verses 1 through 17, Psalms 96, and we'll all draw my reflections. The Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 23, verses 23 through 26. Folks, today I'd like you to really ponder today's passage. It'll help you on your daily life, but I think it's something we should reflect on the rest of the week. It's an important passage. We open up today's gospel with the words, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites." Christ doesn't mince the words here. Christ is calling the religious leaders of the day on the carpet. You see that the Pharisees and the scribes, they were paying their tithes and they were following the law. They were following the letter of the law. But Christ is criticizing them, he's chastising them, not on that, but on forgetting the spirit of the law, the meaning behind the words, forgetting the mercy, the compassion, the sound judgment, the fidelity to what we're supposed to be doing and why. He calls the scribes and Pharisees blind guides who strain out the net and swallow the camel. Well, he's denouncing the actions of these leaders. And it's not because of following the law. It's following blindly and not following the spirit of the Lord. And sadly, a lot of our Christian brothers and sisters today unmeaningly follow into that same trap. Because, let's be honest, folks, sometimes it's easier just to follow blindly and do what you've always done because that's just the way we do it. And that's not what God calls us to do. God's calling us to not just know the words, He wants to know the meaning behind them. That's why I tell you, you need to spend a little time in reflection, some meditation, some contemplation, because God really is calling us to a deeper meaning than just following the words. He wants us to know what we believe. That's not the concern here. It's why we believe it. That's the big concern here, and how we practice it. That's the gist of today's reflection. God's perfectly clear on what He wants in our lives. We read in the book of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 6, "For I desire steadfast love, not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings." And then we read in 1 Samuel 15, verse 22, "And Samuel said, Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obedience to the voice of the Lord? Surely to obey is better than to sacrifice, to heed than the fat of the rams." God wants us to follow Him knowingly, smartly. He wants us to put into practice the words we read. Sometimes it sounds judgmental. It sounds a little bit critical when we correct our brothers and sisters because they're just dogmatic, judgmental. a little bit too legalistic. But sometimes we've got to call folks out and let them know that with all those things, we have to have mercy, compassion, love, forgiveness. Uh, we don't want to get caught in that trap of just following like little robots, little tin soldiers. That's not what God wants from His people. He wants you to be you and to use your intelligence to discern the words. Uh, Sometimes we have to take stock of ourselves and our daily walk as Christians. Uh, we can't get caught up with the rules and regulations. Um, if following blindly and a legalistic, uh, by the book life was all we needed, Christ wouldn't have had to come. So we see that one, we couldn't fulfill the law, and two, the law uh, wasn't going to get us to where we needed to be. Uh, what's that mean for us today? You know, sometimes we find ourselves more concerned with getting to church and getting to church on time rather than what's being taught. We're too concerned with making sure we pay our tithes and we give our offerings and we make sure that we give enough, and rather than why we're giving it. Maybe forgetting that homeless person on the corner, that needy person down the street. Uh, we're to show them compassion and love. It shouldn't be about just doing things to do them. I think that's what the message Christ is trying to extend to us today. Because sometimes we get caught up in the external, what we're wearing to church, what somebody else is wearing to church, what they're not wearing to church, rather than just thanking God they showed up and they're worshiping the Lord. You see, we have to worry about what's on inside. What's going on between your ears? What's going on behind your eyes? That's what God's concerned about. We find earlier in the Gospel of St. Matthew where Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, and he tells them to go and learn what God meant when he said, "But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would have not condemned the guiltless." Jesus and his disciples at this point were picking grains and they were eating them, and the Pharisees were giving them a hard time for not following the law of Moses. They were breaking the law of the Sabbath. But Christ justifies his actions, and he gives two examples. When breaking the law of Moses didn't bring condemnation. We see that David ran from his life from King Saul, and he lied to a priest and not to betray his presence. Then he ate the consecrated bread that was only legal for the priest to eat. And Jesus refers to these 2 points, trying to make his point clear. We read, they ate the consecrated bread, which was not lawful for them to do. But nowhere in the scriptures does we find anyone condemning him for it. Jesus confronts the Pharisees, and he's confronting us really today, how to approach the scriptures. That we need to value mercy over justice, compassion over legalism, Christ realizes that the Pharisees are missing a valuable point. They're worried about the technicalities of the law and not the people that the law was meant to serve. We read in James 2:13, and I will make my point here. I think it makes it clear. For judgment will be without mercy to anyone who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. It's the spirit of the law, folks. Not that the law doesn't matter, not that the scriptures don't matter, because they do. That's what our faith is really based on. That's where we learn what our faith is. But we really need to maybe read between the lines. What's God really trying to tell me in this passage? How am I showing this passage in my life? Am I too caught up in the external and not the internal? Folks, it's really important because when we concentrate on what's going on inside, it manifests itself on the outside. And that's the point I want to get to y'all today, because every one of you is a billboard for the Christian walk. You might not like that. There's days I don't like that. Because some days you're going to be the only person, the only Christian that somebody meets. And so it would be best if we showed mercy, compassion, love, forgiveness. And we work real hard at that. It comes down to, you might know 90% of the Bible by heart, and yet only display 10% of it. But wouldn't it be better if you might only know 10% of the Bible by heart, yet you display 90% of that teaching in your daily lives? Something to ponder today, folks. Maybe to ponder the rest of the week. Those are my reflections today. May the Lord bless and keep you, and may the Lord hold you in the palm of his hands until we meet again. This has been Father Steve, wishing you all a blessed day.